Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
I've just worked out, Paul, I think you may be the dry one.
The dry one, okay.
Yeah, I'm the centered one and you're the mad one, James.
And all round
Badass,
yeah.
Oh, well, I'm having a good day.
Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of the Health Oddity podcast. I had to think about that there. I'd forgot. We've just been having a chat and I'd forgotten what the name of the podcast was. It's the Health Oddity podcast. And here with me, as usual, are my co-hosts. We've got the dry one, which is Mr. Paul Bassett, with his headphones on there, being Craig David. Say hello.
Hello, my name's Paul Bassett.
There you go. Dry as you like. Dry as you like. James is laughing at that, but you can't hear him because he's got mute on.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah, so unmute yourself. And then James, say hello. You must be the centered one, I do believe.
Hello.
Hello. There you go. And then that leaves me, who's the other one with the hair. Right. Adrian,
The mad one.
right.
The mad one.
The mad one.
I
can't say that about myself. I can't say that about myself.
You shouldn't have done your hair especially.
I did. So anyway, this week we have with us Adrienne Harvey, all the way from, where did you say? North Carolina, from the States. I forgot there, sorry.
That's right.
She moves around a lot. Hiya, Adrienne. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Excellent.
And it's been fun chatting thus far. So
Yeah, cool. Right, so anyway, just to explain, Adrian, that the barbers, hairdressers, all that are all closed over here right now. Now that's not a problem for these two, but for me, it's a big issue. But anyway,
It doesn't have to be a problem. You just need to get clippers.
that's what I do.
I'm not doing that again.
I did mine this morning. Look at that, it's shiny. If you're on YouTube, I'm shiny. Yeah.
Have you had the old wax on it and everything and buffed it up? You get one of them floor things and get your wife to just.
I've gone for the old Telly Savalas, you know.
Nice.
Excellent. So anyway, like I said, we have with us this week Adrienne Harvey, who I have never met. James met once years ago, and we were just talking about that, and she didn't have a clue who he was, couldn't remember. But then we got to the bottom of it at the end. But James told me to follow Adrienne on Instagram and Facebook years ago, because she just does some cool stuff. She's a strong lady and she does some cool stuff. Give her a girl on Instagram. She's a senior RKC and a senior PCC, which is the bodyweight version. And that's all I know. So this is going to be great because I'm going to get to find out loads about you, Adrienne, as well. We've been having a little bit of back and forth on Facebook and Instagram as well because of my dog Sid, and you've been commenting on how great he is, and he'll love that. He looks very excited about that right now. But yeah, so welcome along. Introduce yourself. How are you doing?
All right. It's good to be here, and thanks for including me. I thought it was pretty funny that you contacted me after I'd made a birthday post. So I'm now, officially an adult, I guess. So I'm 44, and I've been doing this whole kettlebell thing for quite a while. I saw them way back in 2009 and realized I needed to get involved and learn how to use these. And I found finally, a few months later, I found a local RKC instructor, and he helped me prepare for my first RKC certification, which was in 2010 in Orlando. And it was one of the last really big certifications. And if you go and you look at the roster for that, it is a veritable who's who. You will know the names. I had no idea. I had just been, training in the parks and garages of Central Florida. Just, I'm there, I'm just doing my best. And then ended up being like, oh, I trained for it for like a full year. I was so and you shouldn't be this way, but I was dead set on passing there that day then.
Yeah.
And, like I said, we always tell people, oh, you've got 90 days, you're going to learn a lot there. At this time in my life, and also at this time in the RKC, it was best that you passed there. It was like this whole big thing. But, you know, it sounds like a cliche, but that workshop really changed the entire direction of my career. And which is a funny thing to say, because my career is all over the place by design, for the most part.
Say, Adrian, just for people who aren't aware, the RKC is the Russian Kettlebell Challenge, and that's a big 3-day kettlebell certification by Dragon's Door. Right. What were you doing prior to? So you saw these kettlebells all these years ago. Were you training something different prior to that, or have you always been involved in exercise and training, or what were you doing prior to kettlebells?
So this is pretty funny. I've always, since like the mid 90s, have done some type of lifting or fitness activities. And, you know, I tried pretty much everything, and it just, you know, nothing quite worked like it looked in the books. You know, it's like, well, okay, that's great. This is a very pretty picture in the book, but that's not doing to me what that's doing to her. You know, and from the outside, you know, you don't know that, hey, this is a fitness model. They paid for this book to be in this photo shoot. That's not how she trains all the time. And that's a common misconception out there in the world. But to get back to your whole thing with your question, basically, I had started a small company in 1999 and was selling body piercing jewelry, which is why you will see I have some small scars on my face from that previous company. And there's actually a few books that Dragon's Door has where I'm doing exercises in some of the photos, and you'll see that light catches through a septum piercing before anyone else did. If you know what to look for, you'll get a good laugh on a few pages. So I had that company for 12 years. And it ended up being a real education in e-commerce. I have a computer science degree from way back, but you know, over that 12 years, I learned a whole lot, which I now use to advise other people. But in between there, I was like, man, I am sitting down too much. I'm ready for a change. Everyone's buying their stuff from China starting around 2010. It was starting to go downhill, and it was like, okay, you know what? It's been a good run. It's time to do something else. But first, I feel like I need to hire a personal trainer. I need to get back on track. And I started looking around, and you know, this is going to sound a little bit mean. So I wanted to find a local personal trainer to work with to kind of help me out. And I just was not liking what I was hearing. I was like, well, shoot, how hard is it to pass this freaking test? So I got the books, I got my ACE certification, and that's a great certification and everything, but I was like, I still want more, you know. And then I saw kettlebells. Lauren Brooks had an amazing, like, this was again way back, it was like a static page, and she's got these pictures, and for the time they were very good. But when you're trying to learn a ballistic exercise from a static photo, I mean, University of YouTube is scary enough, but it's like, all right, so how does she get from this picture to this picture? Is it fast? Is it slow? I don't know. So I bought some kettlebells. I got some videos. I unknowingly got some of the best DVDs possible. But again, even with that, it's like, I need some help in person. And that's when I found Tim Schumann, who was in the area. And he ended up actually training me for the next year before I got my RKC certification. Because once I got into the real training, when I started learning the real techniques, I was like, wow, well, straight up, this is the answer. People started asking me, oh, what sports did you play in school? I'm like, I'm a nerd. I was on the chess team before I got a car. You know, I don't think that counts as sports. But it kind of led to a level of athleticism that I had never experienced before. And
that's interesting, because from the outside looking in, from me, like I say, I've never met you, and I've just seen what you do on social media, and it looks like you've probably been into this stuff for years. but you're similar to me. So I've got a maths degree, and I was a nerd at school, and I never did sports. Whereas now, so we're similar age as well. We're the same age. I think I'm like 2 months older than you. I'm a 76 version of 44. But what was I saying? Yeah. So, and I don't know whether people look at me now like that, but it's like, you know, have you always done this and all that? Because I've been doing it for like 10 years now, and I did the same, but like via Strong First, and didn't have a clue how to use these things, and did the same thing, looking on YouTube and all of that, and then it was like, no, I'm going to go and learn properly. And again, and I also wanted to do the thing of like, I want to pass it on the day. I've spent a lot of money on this. I'm going to pass it on the day. And it's hard. And I want to know, like, how hard did you find it? Because like looking back now, it looks like you would have found it easy. Looking at what you do, it's like, well, yeah, she must have breezed that. But like, how tough was it? Did you breeze through it? Did you find it a tough weekend? Was it, you know, what was it like?
It was tougher in my mind than I think, you know, and it was different back then too. The certification has changed a lot now. Like it's a 2-day now. The focus is really, like with Dragon Door, the focus is really on teaching. Like we want to churn out not just a bunch of coaches, but when someone leaves there, I want to personally feel like I'm comfortable with that person teaching the swing, the clean, the get up, the snatch, you know, the squats and everything. Like I'm comfortable with them teaching a complete newbie, you know, so that's kind of the goal now. Back then it was a little bit different. It was a little bit of a kind of a rite of passage, of a prove it kind of thing. And quite honestly, I hate to admit this, I needed that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to draw like a line in the sand saying, all right, past this point, everything changes, you know, and for some personalities, that's very motivating. If I hadn't passed that day, I probably would have been pretty upset about it, but I would have been made sure to pass. You know, they also had some other features of it. So like a big chunk of the last day was John Duquesne's marketing lecture, which I wrote down so many notes from that. I keep all my notes. But I came back and I started implementing that stuff immediately. And the change was, I mean, it straight up, it just works. Well, James, you know, you've been to some of those marketing workshops, which, you know, have the same type of strategy.
Yeah, I actually saw John at the event that we met at. John Duquesne did a big talk on using the story to sell and kind of how he came up with the Dragon's Door and the kind of mythos, and he's an absolute genius. Yeah, so no, it was great stuff. Yeah,
it's interesting. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was gonna say a combination of both that, but then also the extra little bits of knowledge that I got from, and when I say extra little bits, I mean like buckets, loads, you know, just whoa, a whole new world of stuff. Like I'd been training really hard because I wanted to get as much out of those 3 days as possible. At the time, it was a huge expenditure. I borrowed money from friends to do it. I mean, it's kind of like cringy to think about now, but you know, it's it was like getting a rocket engine.
But what's for me is the interesting part for our listeners is you went from being someone who had a desk job and had gone through the kind of educational route to suddenly finding this thirst to learn more about physical training. Mm-hmm. And many people train with us and they're coming because they want an outcome. So what suddenly clicked in you to take you from someone who wanted just a basic fitness outcome to someone who decided that they wanted to create a new lifestyle?
Well, a lot of it is kind of funny. It was just kind of the joy of finally finding something that worked. One of the things I hate about things labeled women's fitness is a lot of it's pretty pictures, period. And it doesn't work. And, oh, well, we don't need to really worry about teaching women the right thing. They'll never lift heavy. We all on this call know that's a bunch of baloney. And if you hear me pausing before saying baloney, it's because I'm trying not to say some impolite right? And so it's, you know, oh my gosh, here is something that works with all human bodies. I feel like I need to share this in every possible way. And what's kind of neat now is I'm finding, I'm not, if you follow me online, I do a lot of stuff. I mean, there's, that's a robot that I built. So, I do a lot of different stuff. But one of the things is I'm not out there like, oh, you don't come to me for a weight loss boot camp. You don't come to me if you need motivation necessarily, but I am training a lot of very technical people now. And in fact, a good friend of mine and I started up a corporate wellness program that has now moved online, which is kind of fun, for a local biotech company here in North Carolina. And a lot of, the people on there, they're all scientists. They're very precise. And this type of training actually works really well for them. We can get very literal and they get it. I've even had clients in the past where I'll be like, yeah, like 30 degrees. And then they're like, and I'm like, what? Like, hey, next time I need a protractor, I'm just going to have you come over. All right. Because that was astounding. You're getting somebody to set up for a get up and you're like, well, your arm's kind of at 90 degrees out to the side. We need to bring that down more to like a 45. And it just like zips right there. And you're just, from someone you don't even expect to have that level of proprioception, you give them some numbers and they're good to go. I'm like, all right, we're speaking that language now. I'm down.
But there's a lot. I mean, I come across on that point. I come across a lot of people who've never had any real physical discipline. So they've never been sporty at school. They've never really had an interest in fitness. And one of the reasons sometimes I don't utilize Turkish get up too much. Well, firstly is I can't get 6 people in a room doing it because I haven't got enough space.
Oh.
But secondly, it's sometimes people's proprioceptive awareness of where their body is at any particular time makes that move very complex. And I end up doing that more with very small groups of like 2 people or 1 person, mainly because then we can get a lot of work done with those people, but in a group where we've got to keep a pace. So, I mean, how are you trying to take this technical knowledge and apply it to people who maybe, particularly in the corporate environment, where you're coming across all kinds of people from all age groups and not necessarily people who've come to you because they want to learn kettlebell work or body weight training or whatever? How are you distilling that?
Oh, it's actually pretty neat. Before I forget, with the get up, I love to use just parts and pieces of it, because if you look at the get up, there's actually, at least 7, maybe 10, depends on who you ask, little separate exercises in there. Like when I was first learning the get up, I found it, oh my God, this is overwhelming. I'm like, this is like, all that choreography dance crap I can't do, like what in the music told you to make that move? I don't get it. And once we broke it down, and then it was like, oh, so those 4 pieces you've been practicing between kettlebell swings, if you can fit those together, and all of a sudden, oh, okay, I get it. So I may break things down, like that first bit, that push and the roll, that is a great thing to do for reps. It's really low risk at that point. They've got no weight, they're already on the floor. So I might break it up like that. The other thing too is just really focusing on movement quality, because you know how it is from the beginning. Okay, we're going to bend at the hips. People don't know what that means. Next thing you know, they're bending at like someplace 2 inches above their navel. And you're like, you think your hips are up there? Okay, that's interesting. We're going to recalibrate that a little bit. So teaching them just how to hinge. A lot of times you'll see, whoa, and these are smart people. They just are not aware yet of kind of where their parts and pieces are. And you may say a word to them that they think means one thing and another. Like a lot of times I've found with cues with people, it's just finding the word that resonates. So I basically toss, word salad at them, and I see what they repeat and which gets them moving. And then it's like, oh, all right, well, that's your word for that. When I cue you, I'm going to use that word. But it is pretty interesting, because I look at like myself coming from no formal athletic background, and then suddenly being given this vocabulary of movements that are actually really, really good. It took time though. And I know that Tim a few times is just like, I don't even know what's going on, but we got through it. He was used to dealing with football players. I'm 5'3", and I'm about the opposite of, and I mean American football. So it was pretty funny. But yet again, these movements work for me, they work for them, and they, once everybody gets that in there, they can be very helpful. But to answer your question, just getting those basic movements down. I mean, the hinge is huge, because then we've got the deadlift, then we've got our swings, we've got that whole bit, and just getting them from not doing this. Last week's, we're doing a body weight only workout once a week with part of the corporate program. We're going to twice a week next week, which is going to be interesting. But I do a lot of upper body mobility kind of sneaked in there. Like they also have somebody teaching yoga and some mobility and breathing and stuff. So when they come to my class, they really want some fitness. They want to get their heart rate up. They want to get some, like, ooh, yeah. But I still want to sneak that upper body mobility in for them, because I know they're doing this. And, so we try to get them facing the other way, and they may or may not know that they're doing mobility exercises.
I love that. It's like, that's kind of like Mr. Miyagi stuff, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like wax the car, what was it? Car and
wax on, wax off.
Wax the fence, paint the car.
Go fishing, yeah, all that. Or wax your head, James. You can do a bit of that. But that's like, it's that sort of stuff. Like you say with the get up, try to teach someone the get up. Some people get it quite well because they know their bodies, but other people are just like, what's going on? So like you said, like rolling 45s or whatever, get them doing that first movement. And then later on you go, okay, let's give it a try, and they can do it. And they're like, how's that? And it's like, because you've learned everything else along the way. And what you said earlier about like, stuff you see in magazines and stuff. I've got like, I've been doing Indian clubs, and I've got an Indian club book here, and you should see the pictures of trying to sweep. Like they're like, I've got one from like 1895 or something, and it's like,
oh my gosh,
pattern here in this, and it's just circles everywhere, and you're like, how the hell are you meant to be able to do that? Whereas now, and what I try to get people to do, encourage people to do, is take videos of themselves that they can send to me or whatever, or just see, because they'll see like you doing something on a screen or a YouTube video, and they'll go, and you might watch them do something, and they'll go, am I not doing that? And you're like, nope, nah, you're doing something completely different. And they're like, really? So you'll say video yourself, and then they'll look and go, oh yeah. So it's a good little feedback thing. And I remember when I first did that, I thought my swing was great. And then when I first video, I was like, I need to sort that out. That's not good at all. So yeah, that's cool. So how does it work with the corporate thing? Have you got like a whole, how did you get into that? Have you got like a whole package for these guys, or did you just like, was it like a consultation progress to find out exactly what they wanted first?
So we were, my friend and I are friends with the people who own the company, and they're very committed to health and fitness and wanted to bring that to their employees. So we all kind of worked together and created the program. Originally, it was at their corporate campus, and we helped design this beautiful gym that only 2 people are allowed to use at a time right now because of COVID. But before all of this, we would go down there and each lead a class on a particular day of the week. And, we have there's a full rack of like kettlebells. There's a power rack. Like again, last year, or maybe the year before, we've been doing this for a while. Like we did a special seminar in there on the power rack so people could try it. And a lot of times, people had never even picked up a barbell before. And so, we kind of just worked with them on that. It's reasonably a casual type of deal, but they've really enjoyed the online classes, and it's been kind of a fun thing to deliver.
What outcomes did they want? I mean, because when a business is making a decision about their wellness policy for their employees, I remember working at a business, no names, they used to give you a banana and a vitamin drink. And then they had a rowing machine down in the basement, and everyone would come downstairs and see how far they could go in a minute. And that was wellness day. What outcomes did they come to you wanting to achieve? Because it's a big thing at the moment with everyone stuck at home. How do you stay fit and well?
Well, good news was we got started with this before any of this, by probably about a year. And I think the main outcomes were they just wanted to make sure people were staying healthy and staying active. And, you know, health and fitness are very important to their leadership team. Like if you see them, you're like, yeah, that guy lifts big time. You know, some of them are former power lifters. They're built. And they wanted to share that with their employees because they know how much that's helped them in their own life and their productivity. And it was like, hey, let's do this. It's all voluntary. They're not like tracked or anything. They're not getting their BMIs measured, but it was kind of like, hey, here's, you know, something that we can add as a benefit. And you know, there wasn't really a specific outcome other than that. They were still really kind of a small company, so that, you know, the kind of overarching large corporation vibe is not there. So that helps.
Makes sense to lead from the front. I mean, there's a lot of businesses, I think, particularly the smaller ones, you definitely see the owners, the directors, the company kind of shareholders leading from the front when it comes to wellness, because it's often the people I've spoken to who have very effective corporate wellness policies in place tend to have it as one of their major values as an individual, rather than just thinking it's a tick the box exercise, you know?
Right. Well, it's funny too, like when we were meeting in on their campus, leadership would show up and do the workouts and leave in a pool of sweat, you know, and that was, I think, really powerful, I think, for everybody to see. And for me, I was like, I better make this hard enough, you know. There's a, you know, full range. It's like, okay, hey, if this is getting tough, let's you know, bring your hands up onto a bench. You know, we're always doing variations. And so now with online, I realized that it's an interesting challenge now, because I need to do the workout as well as lead the workout. And that's fine and dandy if you're doing a little aerobics thing. But, you know, this is, you know, I'm not going to do a halfway job on this because I have some personal pride with that. And I also don't want to demonstrate a halfway job. So learning how to talk and do, you know, knee slap mountain climbers, while also giving cues, you know, keeping the hands under the shoulders, you know, hey guys, you know, walk it out if you need to. But while still doing this has been an interesting challenge over the past now year, because we moved to online last year, March 25th. So in a month, it will have been a full year of online training. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been harder to translate kettlebell training to this format, and I'm not sure that we will, but I have also kept up with, I have a few distance clients for kettlebells. And this is what I wanted to go back to. Peter had mentioned talking about sending the videos back and forth. I have one very advanced client who that has brought a whole new dimension to our training. And like, I will do screenshots and like circle things with green arrows, and it just clicks with him immediately. I will see it in his next session. And on ballistic stuff too, like we all know it can be pretty difficult to teach the kettlebell clean because it's timing, it's coordination, it's, you know, where is the weight and what am I doing, and am I banging the wrist, my grip timing. I could go on and on about the clean and have. But teaching that in this way, it was like, oh, hey, notice how you're kind of going out like this. You know, if you're saying that to somebody in person, you know, they may or may not feel it. I'm able to actually grab that frame of the video and circle it. A little background on him, again, very, very technical person, very tuned into details. So very literal cues like that work fabulously. General folks out in the world, I don't know so much, but you know, this has been incredible. And we're getting him ready for an RKC workshop. And, you know, before now, I would not necessarily be comfortable helping somebody do RKC prep from a distance. But I think with certain people and certain personalities, and also with all the technology that we have at our disposal now, I'm like, all right, actually, this seems to be working.
I love that with what you were saying about like the corporate stuff there, with the bosses get involved as well. Because like what Paul said, you know, there's plenty of places that do that. They'll just give you a banana and a milkshake or something. And like, because where I used to work when I had a proper job, they had a gym there, and there was quite a big culture of there was a running club, and there was all sorts. There was quite a big culture of fitness, and most people used it as well. It was really good, you know, and that was brilliant. But the thing with the thing that resonated with me there, which will for the listeners who'll be listening to this, you know, people who are parents and what have you, is the thing about like the boss. If the bosses are there doing it as well, the employees are then right. You mean this. So like with parents with kids, you know, it's like saying to your kids, get off the Xbox and get out of the house and all that. And they're like, but you don't do anything. So why should I? Do you know what I mean? And that's, there was a podcast I was listening to this morning with Paul Mort on it, who's like an old coach of mine.
Oh, cool.
From back in the day. And he does like lots of mindset stuff. And he said like, he mainly coaches men and what have you. And he said he gets loads of dads who come to him and they're like, you know, I just want to be there for my kids and all that. And he's like, well, you need to show it by example. You can't tell them to do something and go off and do something else. Right. So that, like, you know, it's similar with bosses and employees and all of that. You've got to show by example, which is what we do, being in the industry and all that. We've got to try and show that as well. We can't say to people, go and be fit, strong and healthy in that while we're over here doing something completely different. So yeah, I absolutely love that. So how do you incorporate it all, or how do you get across the message to people? Because, you know, about kind of like what you're doing now will help you out 20, 30 years down the line. You know, keeping you fit, strong and healthy into your old age and keeping you moving well and being able to be there for your kids and grandkids and what have you.
Right. Well, I spent a large quantity of my life down in Florida, and when you do that, you have friends of like all ages. Like I've had friends in their 80s and stuff like that. And the main thing you keep hearing from your older pals is, I've got to stay independent. I've got to stay independent. And they know that if they fall, everything could go away. You know, next thing you know, you're unable to care for yourself. You can't go do fun things with your friends anymore. What is even the point? So a lot of them were very keenly aware of that. And, oh, I need strength to stand up out of a chair when I'm 80. I need strength to be able to carry in the groceries. You know, so this was a very, you know, kind of a real thing that I would hear from my friends down at, you know, Starbucks. And I've worked for myself for such a long time that, you know, I would go and, or it's like 2 p.m, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to walk down to Starbucks, and then, oh, there's all my retired friends sitting outside. One of them had a pet hedgehog. It was hysterical. But, kid you not.
So you go for fast walks with that, can't you?
Yeah. So just bring in a little bag. And, you know, and so they wanted to keep, you know, having a fun lifestyle, and, you know, being healthy that is the first step to that. If you lose your health, you have nothing at that point. And it doesn't matter how much you've saved up for retirement. If you're spending it being in a home, what is it worth? You know, you're not out on your friend's boat. You're not hanging out. You're not doing anything. So, you know, I've always been kind of keenly aware of that, with, you know, being able to keep strength. And as we get older, if we don't do anything about it, then you know, they say, okay, well, muscle wasting starts, this and that. And I hate how the media portrays that as an eventuality, because if you train correctly, it doesn't have to be that way. And a lot of people get confused that I'm 44. A lot of people, oh, I think I'm too old to start working out. And I'm like, well, how old are you? I'm 32. I'm like, shut up.
Exactly.
Dude, Like, I'm friends with your mom. She could fling you over a fence. What is happening? And, I think it's, as we get older, how I like to look at it is, we were younger, we could get away with more. The body can take a lot more abuse. I ate terrible things in college, awful things. But you're young and your metabolism's ridiculously high, so you can process some garbage. Same goes with garbage training. You're going to bounce back from garbage training easier when you're a kid. As an adult, well, hopefully you've learned a few things and you're starting to get a little smarter. And I think that's been my approach. It's like, well, I spent all that time learning what not to do. And now I know what to do. And, I feel like what I do now, I can do forever, pretty much.
I mean, the good news is, I was ID'd recently. And
Wow.
I know, it's amazing. I was wearing a mask and I had a tracksuit on. So I don't know.
Thought you were fat.
But that's how I like to think I look young.
Excellent.
That's
Good.
That's funny though, because I was listening to sorry, James, carry on.
I was just going to say, Adrian, one of the things you said sort of earlier, then kind of bringing it back to this is when you were, before you were kind of into the training to the extent you are now, you used to look at maybe, fitness magazines or fitness books and things, and you could tell that, there's a fitness model demonstrating something that don't actually train like that. But now, obviously, you've become, I don't want to poster child or whatever, you're in you do lots of kind of books and magazines and things, don't you, where you're demonstrating the exercises. And you've actually, like Pete said near the start, if you didn't know what you'd said to us earlier, you would just assume that you've been like very athletic and been into strength training your whole life, because you have developed a really kind of powerful, lean, strong, athletic physique. So in terms of all the modalities that you use, you're obviously, like I say, senior PCC, senior RKC, you've mentioned barbell and power racks today as well. How do you see that all fitting together, or does it just depend upon who you are and where you're starting from? In your own training now, what kind of mesh do you use?
Well, it's funny. I realized since about 2010, all I do is kettlebell, body weight, and recently I've added in the iso chain here and there from Dragon Dorso, Isometrics, and some sandbag, for fun. Sandbags are just kind of fun, and I like to mix it up. Past that, I do some hiking, and that's about it. If a barbell is present, sure, I'll go be like, see what my deadlift's at. I'll get in a really bad mood if I can't bench press my weight for reps at any given time. But I don't have regular access to that. But I do find that my training, crosses over to that, where I can maintain decent numbers even in things that I don't train, because the movement. I need more coffee. The movement patterns are there. They're strong. I know where to put myself, in a given exercise. And so it's like, it all seems to carry over well enough. Now, I'm not going to win a powerlifting competition with this approach. I'm not going to, win any type of competition that requires specific training like that. But if I wanted to do that, I'm at a good place to start. I'm at a good kind of a general level of strength and mobility and coordination. So it's kind of like, right now I train to be able to do what I do and to feel better. So I love lifting, relatively heavy things relative to my own weight. It's like I have two 30-kilo kettlebells, and it's fun to just pick those up and take a walk. It's like, and everyone wonders why they're very deep, very tiny footprints outside. Like, oh my God, a 260-pound woman with a size 7 shoe, UK 5, has been stomping all over the yard. What has happened here?
You want to go out and take pictures of it and get it. You'll get it in the news. There'll be some sort of like tiny little monster just roaming around outside.
Yeah, the
So
best
for you
part is
then,
I have a
kind of-
client who's about the same size, and she's also now become very advanced. And we would do park workouts, and then I'm just like, we need to start bringing a little shovel because we're damaging the park. And that guy over there looks really scared right now, and it's hard to not laugh about that.
We train in a park, me and my guys, and we used to get some funny looks, but we don't so much anymore because everyone's training outside at the minute because of COVID,
Right.
because all the gyms are shut. It's
Yeah.
become the normal thing. I'm going to have to think of something more weird to do. So any suggestions, let me know.
Throw buckets of water over them.
There you go. Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that the other day. I used to run a friend's boot camp. 15 years ago. Wait. Oh, wow. 10, 15. And sometimes she would have them take a lap. So she would write the workouts and she's like, oh, have them take a lap. Well, this was around the same time that Convict Conditioning came out, that wonderful book. And I was just like, oh, this is so great. Well, I was doing handstand push-ups next to a telephone pole while they did their lap. And I didn't think anything of it. And, and I was like, but it was weirding some people out.
Yeah.
And later on, I found out that there were some guys there that normally would have bothered the boot camp people. They saw me doing that and they're just like, I think maybe she's been inside. We're going to not mess with her.
Yeah, stay away from her. She's got half her head shaved. She's been inside, like, oh, she's got this stuff sticking out of her face. No, don't go anywhere
Doing
near that.
handstand push-ups, for reps. At the time, I was like really, really into it. I need to get back into those, but I was like banging out like 5, 6, 7, 8, coming down, shaking it out, and doing it again. And also the other thing too that will freak out your neighbors, if you do pull-ups on the underside of stairs, apparently I didn't think anything of it. I had this apartment, this like really cool building from the 60s. They had those open stairwells and I would do it all the time. And I was like, man, people are just being really polite to me. Why is that? They're like, yeah, that's how people do pull-ups in prison. I'm like, oh goodness.
I'm thinking Sarah Connor from Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
That's-
like,
I mean,
well,
It's
hey,
funny because we're down the park using kettlebells, but people kind of know more people know what kettlebells are now. So if you start swinging a mace around your head, then that gets people. Oh, well, hang on. There's something funny going on here now.
Yeah.
There's always something that you can freak people out with. It's great.
right. So, if you need to up the weird factor, you can. But, something to reference what you mentioned earlier with the dads and the kids and stuff, something that's really fun that used to happen all the time when we'd work out in the park is other people's kids would see us and they thought we were playing some kind of a game because we're all laughing, smiling, having a great time, and somehow still doing burpees. And the kids would start trying to mimic what we were doing. You look over and there's like a 5-year-old like banging out some like 5-year-old burpees.
Yeah.
And their parents were, unfortunately, in this particular example, very overweight. The kids were normal weight from. I don't have kids. I don't really understand kid physics, but they looked regular to me. And they were doing burpees, and it was like, wow, okay. Even if they're like, hey, some adults are playing a game that looks fun. Let's try it. And it's like, well, I feel good about that. Mom and dad, maybe sign up.
Exactly. Get the kid. It's like reverse marketing. Instead of marketing to the parents to look after their kids,
Right.
not better, but show a good example. You can market to the kids to go and get your parents involved. Tell them you want to do this more often with them.
Right, with them, because like I don't know.
But that's a good point as well, actually, because like from what you were saying earlier, like people in their 40s or whatever who are like, well, I'm not in shape, or even in their early 30s, I'm not in shape, so it's too late. I was listening to the Pat Flynn podcast, actually. He had Jeff Newport on, and he was talking about like, and we all know about this, like, and you were talking about muscle wasting and all that, and people just think that's a fact of life. But it's not, because you can reverse it, right? You can put muscle on in your 40s and 50s and what have you. But I think there's kind of a stigma around that with I mean, I don't know, I might be wrong, but people are like, if you lift weights, you put muscle on, you become this type of person who's a bit of a gym bro and all of that. And I'm not that person. And it's like, well, that's kind of fine. But if you want to stay fit, strong, healthy, and you want to have, like, if you fall over, you want to be able to get back up, you're going to need muscle to be able to do that. And obviously, you know, women might find that a bit more stigmatized as well, because then it's like, well, I don't want to become this bulky woman and all of that. But obviously it's hard to get like that, isn't it? Let's face it.
I'm just like, what are you complaining about? Did you guys see what I had to eat to
yeah.
do what I'm doing?
Yeah. So that's where I think for the listeners, it's kind of like, you know, because if you're of a certain age, like say mid-30s, 40s, 50s, it doesn't even matter if you've gone beyond that. It's, you know, it's one of those things, like you were saying, you talk to the people who are older and they're like, it's the stuff you've done years ago that will help you be able to do that now. Right. Because if you do fall over and break your hip and you've got osteoporosis and, you know, you've had muscle wastage and all that, it's like, it's harder to reverse in 10 years time than it was 10 years ago, no matter what age you are, let's face it. So
I spoke to someone a few days ago, actually, on one of a phone consultation, and they've been doing, it was either Cambridge diet or Lighter Life. I don't know if you got those in the States. Basically, they're replacement shakes. And they'd done them for 6 months, hit their weight loss goal, but started to lose hair, started to feel absolutely awful.
Yeah.
There's a case of one of my mother's friends from 12 years ago, was doing a similar diet, did it quite intensely, got to a goal weight, fell over, broke a hip at the age of 54.
Wow.
Crazy. And God knows what was happening. I mean, they probably had a history of trying to lose weight a lot, not doing any exercise, but what you do and the body weight training, the kettlebell training, the eating the right kind of calories and just taking care of yourself, it's going to stop that happening. And I think for some people who've had that boom and bust approach where they've lost weight, gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, never done any exercise, it's not saying it's going to happen, but I don't want to gamble, me personally, with my own body. And I've seen it happen to people. And I think it's just, and it's more prevalent, I would say, with women because it's marketed mainly to those people, because the kind of bro things marketed to men. It's like, you know, the V shreds and all those things, the adverts you see on YouTube, you know, bulking, stuff like that. But all those packaged things and those kind of calorie restriction things are quite dangerous, I think.
Well, yeah. And if you look at it, you're like, okay, well, what are you taking in on these? I think stuff can be, you know, if they're going to only do short term, like almost a reset, and, you know, I'm not endorsing that, but if, you know, something calorie restricted for a very short period of time is fine, but it's not sustainable. Unfortunately, sometimes if people have a predisposition to disordered eating, that can set off a terrible chain of events. So there's a lot of risks kind of involved with those type of approaches, and you know, not even just physical but also psychological, because it's like, well, okay, well, you're at the end of your 30-day thing, now what? And the now what is the important part. Are you going to go back to eating French fries because the thing's done and this begins the cycle? I even see this with fellow fitness friends where, you know, they'll go, it's almost, you can almost put it on the calendar. I'm like, 3 months, we'll be saying about that. I'm going to eat clean. We're going to start this challenge. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. So we're on that for this quarter. I had that in my book. You know, I think a longer cycle approach can sometimes be better. And man, the stuff that's marketed to women is such garbage in general. It's changing, but it's changing too slowly for me. So there's a lot of hashtags and you know, kind of movements and stuff that I just stay away from completely. If you put hot pink on it, I'm just like, I'm out. I can't. I'm just like, stop gendering everything. These are human bodies, and these basic movements with weight, when done properly, work for human bodies. It's like, all right, maybe our weight distribution's a little bit different between men and women, you know, fine. Honestly, you know, with having the lower center of balance for me, hey, I see that as an advantage, you know, not always with, you know, a front lever, that's not going to be an advantage. but it's like, okay, well, why do I want to do that? And if I want to do that, I'll move my training. But to get back what you're saying, it's like, okay, well, are you losing weight or are you losing fat? It sounds like, unfortunately, your mom's friend lost some healthy tissue along with the fat. And as we get older, that's really not a good thing, because you're going to have bone loss, muscle loss. And it's like, man, that's not good. You could have been using that stuff.
It's funny actually, because there's like we'll have to wrap up in about 10 minutes, I think, because like,
oh my gosh, wow, yeah,
we've been going for ages, man. This is what happens. But it's funny, you've said a couple of things there. One thing that it's like, these things are healthy for everybody, because everybody, like, apart from obvious things, everybody's made the same. And I remember Mark Rifkin saying, it was at the Strength Matters certification year in about like 2015, I think it was. And that was when he was over with those. And he said, basically, it's like going to the car garage and being a mechanic there, and the people are bringing in the same car all the time. It's the same car every single time. All your customers have got the same car. And they're like, this is broken, this is broken. And you're like, I know how to fix that. I know how to fix that. I know how to fix that. Because it's the same model and there aren't any others. So therefore you don't have to worry about it, which I think is fantastic. So like you say, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or whatever. It's the thing behind it is these things do work for everybody. However, you've got to enjoy it as well, right? So it doesn't work if you're going to hate the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And there was another thing I was going to say as well, but I can't remember what it was. So never mind.
I just asked you, Adrian, about, you mentioned you mentioned kettlebell body weight, and then you mentioned the iso chain stuff that Dragon Ball is doing at the moment. So I've obviously seen that and the isometric stuff, but can you maybe just spend a couple of minutes just explaining to the listeners as well, kind of what isometric training is and what the iso chain exercise that you just spoke about was? Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So It's funny, I've had to really shift my thinking when doing isometric. So in the past, a lot of us, you were doing this as a kid. That is an isometric exercise. You are pushing against you, which is making a immovable situation. So with an isometric exercise, you're pulling against or pushing against something that's not moving. So the muscle itself is not lengthening or stretching or you're not pulling on it, you're staying in place, but you're still applying force. So in the past, you've seen the old Bruce Lee pictures where he's got like a stick and a chain and he's standing on a platform and he's doing a curl with it. But obviously he's never going to go to here. It's always going to be here because that's the length of the chain, and he's pulling against that at that particular point. And he is strengthening right at that precise angle. So the iso chain is very similar to that old school Bruce Lee device, except you have, it's got a load cell in there, and you'll be able to see how much force you are generating at a given time. And that's kind of the main advantage of it, which seems like a simple thing, but in the past, people are like, I was getting good results with isometric training, but I just don't know where I'm at with it, so they let it go. And if you can realize, oh, well, last week I pulled 250 on this week I pulled 280 on this, you're going to keep doing it. The other cool thing about the iso chain is that there's a couple of different little timers in there that'll let you know, hey, you're going to pull maximum for a couple of seconds, or it's going to make a sound when you finally reach a goal of how much force you want to generate. So there's a lot of information from it. It is a surprisingly simple gadget, and it's interesting too because it's kind of actively being developed. So like next versions of it seem to have, every time a shipment comes in, it seems like there's another little improvement. Some of the customers are so strong, they're just like, yeah, I broke the eye bolt. I'm like, all right, cool. They'll send you a new little thingy that you broke. I'm like, dude, this guy got so strong with this thing, he broke it. And so it's kind of cool for somebody with kind of type A personality. I have to really adjust my thinking when doing isometrics, because I want the satisfaction of completing the lift, and I have to really fight the impulse of that. It's like, okay, I'm going to apply as much force as reasonably possible without somehow contorting myself to complete the lift. So that has been a personal challenge, I'll own that. But it's been a neat thing to add, especially since I've got a kind of a home gym set up now, which is fabulous. But there is definitely, I'm not putting a barbell over there. I'm not putting a lifting platform. I will get kicked out of this house, and, boom.
A lot of crossover from that kind of what the hell effect, or that crossover effect from doing the iso chain stuff to then doing your other movements. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, especially I've really enjoyed the overhead press with the iso chain, because there's always that sticking point. You want to go up to the next weight and you want to press through that, but it just doesn't get past. Maybe it's there. Well, wait a minute. What height is that? I want to get my measuring tape out, and I'll be like, oh, okay, let's see. Do. And all right, I'll set up the chain for that. I am going to train that spot and then just beyond it with the iso chain. And next thing you know, a few weeks later, you're blasting through that part of the lift. You may have found a new sticking point to work with, but you're past that one.
I recently downloaded a book from Steve Maxwell's site about isometrics, because he's got a workout that he puts together for himself, because obviously he lives out of kind of hotel rooms because he's pretty nomadic. And he's a strong guy. He's 65, 60, even older than that. I'm not sure how old he is now. Yeah. And but it's also worth saying that isometrics, and I did them a lot with my clients because Zoom is a perfect place to do isometrics. A lot of clients have joint problems, and they're very safe because you're the one controlling the amount of force. There's no movement of the joint, and there's always a modification. And like you say, you can choose that sticking point, the bottom of the press up. There's a sticking point for a lot of people. Some people can't quite get there, and you just find the sticking point that works,
Yep. No,
Are you sure your clients on Zoom aren't just pressing pause?
Well, I did have that conversation with them. I did say, I don't know if my internet has frozen, but I am just...
Held that for 45 minutes. That's
I know. That has happened where while I've frozen, and they've still been doing the set for like 2 minutes while I finally get back in,
Yeah, it comes back in and they're just there like, how can I stop now?
Yeah, that's probably not if you're doing timed circuits, that could get interesting.
Right. I think we should stop there. We've been going for nearly an hour. So Adrian, it's been fantastic. Thank you for coming on. Thank you. It's been brilliant. James, have you got any other questions that you want to ask Adrian before we leave?
No, really, just I suppose if people want to find out more about you and find out what you do and follow your robot building and salad growing and everything, where do people find out more about you?
Well, they can always visit my website. It's GIRYAGIRL.com. They can also find me on Instagram at that same name. It is Giria Girl TV on YouTube, but I tend to link to that. There's actually some follow along workouts up there now that have timers and everything right on the screen. I'm going to be doing some more of those as time allows, but they're body weight. There's probably going to be some kettlebell ones shortly as well. But yeah, I'd say if you go to the website, then everything else is linked from there. Excellent. And yeah, so that's pretty good. So I'm always up to something.
And Mr. Paul Bassett, have you got your final thoughts?
Final thoughts? No, I was just thinking something right at the beginning you said where you're running a piercing business, you still got scars from that. I think we've all got scars from running a business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the link between you, Sarah Connor, and Terminator, because you're building robots. So it does worry me somewhat what's happening in your apartment.
What I love is
it sentient?
What I need is
it's like one of those ones as well.
Look at
Oh
that.
yeah, it's a quadruped robot. So this was designed by Stanford University, and they
Do
put.
they know you have it?
Yeah, I got all the parts and assembled it. It's kind of a mess right now because I'm testing some different things, but it walks. It's like a teeny tiny cheap version of the Boston Dynamics Spot.
Yeah.
So it's got 12 degrees of freedom, which is insane. So its little legs are here. They're
That's more
carbon
freedom
fiber.
than we have in COVID.
Hey.
So, but it runs on a Raspberry Pi 4. If anybody knows what that is, they'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Sounds like a compote.
What's that?
Sounds like a compote.
Yogurt.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is awesome, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it hardly looks like it's going to take over the world, Paul. So I think we're all right.
I don't know, if you put a gun on it.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's I can.
Although
say-
if it gets into politics, you never know, it might get voted in.
Oh, there is one thing. This is I'm beta testing this product right now. This is a LiDAR camera, laser radar, and it kind of tells you the distance of things, the shape of things. It can map rooms or whatnot, and that is going on. That
So
robot.
you don't put it on yourself to work out social distancing?
You could. That would be a really oddly specific role for this type of equipment, but you could. Some people
They made a
are
killing a year ago.
That's what they were speaking as well. So it would be like on Phoenix Nights, it'd be like, "Get back, you bastard, or I'll break your legs."
Right? You can actually do that with a very simple ultrasonic, and there have been a number of projects out there where nerds have made these little, like a medallion or something you can pin onto your shirt, and if it detects that, and an ultrasonic sensor is a lot cheaper than one of these. And so if you want to do that, there's plans out there to build that, and people will absolutely avoid you if they see that.
It's like the old Google glasses where there's a camera. Basically, no one would want to talk to anyone with a camera on their glasses, would they?
Right. Yeah. I was in a restaurant in Boston and somebody came in with those on, and it was interesting to watch. We were right near MIT, and I guess it was somebody from this school. And they came in with a group, and everybody at the tables was all like, "Oh!"
Well, there we go. So,
Go.
yeah, all done. So, thank you for listening. If you want to subscribe to the Health Oddity podcast, that will be right. Hang on, sorry, I'm being
Oh!
he wants to go out for a walk. Anyway, get down there.
That's the dog, yeah?
I'm wrapping up here.
Those who are listening.
Yes, sorry, my he's at me now. Where was I? Yes, if you like it, if you want to subscribe, that'll help us out with the numbers. If you want to share with your friends, if you think there's anything we've talked about here or in the previous episodes that will help them out, just share it, send it, like email a link to them or whatever. Next week, who have we got on next week?
I don't know.
I was just going to say, Adrian mentioned Lauren Brooks earlier, and we've got Lauren on in a few weeks, haven't we?
She's in a few weeks, yeah. I think next week might be
Maggie?
is it? It's Maggie Elliott. Maggie Elliott, who's awesome as well. She's great. She's cool. So,
Nice.
yeah. So, Adrienne, thanks for coming on, and you guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you and talk to you next week. Ta-ra.
Great. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.